It is Friday, which means it is time for another edition of Nonprofit Nerds. I'm your host, Josh Hirsch, and with me, as always, the fabulous Julia Camba. Hi, Julia.
Hi. I'm so happy that everyone could be here today. And of course, we have an incredibly amazing special guest. We're going to talk about that in a second. But we want to know from you, where are you watching from? So take a second to type into the comments. And don't tell me if it's nice out, because where John and I are, it is 50 degrees and raining. Although I think it's going to hit 60 degrees today. But it's still raining, so it doesn't matter. If you don't know who I am, who we are, I am Julia Campbell, and I help nonprofits build their communities and engage with their audiences using digital tools. And I've been doing Facebook Lives on and off for about 2 years now, and recently, in the last few months, Josh and I banded together and became the Nonprofit Social Media Nerds. And today we're talking about email newsletters. If you have questions, make sure you put them in the comments. We'll get to them as we can get to them. We'll monitor them as we go, and then we'll leave some time at the end. But without further ado, I want to introduce my good friend and all around amazing human and nonprofit digital rock star, John Hayden. And I will read his bio because it's amazing. John Hayden is one of the most sought after digital marketing experts for nonprofits and charities, and he has helped hundreds of nonprofits realize their best marketing and fundraising results. He's the author of several books, including Facebook Marketing for Dummies, Facebook Marketing All-in-One, and the upcoming Donor Care, which I hope that we can talk about in a little bit. I met John when I first started my business, and my daughter was 2 years old. And John, I don't know if you remember this, but I called you on the phone out of the blue to say, you know what, I'm thinking of doing digital marketing consulting for charities. Like, I see you're really successful, and I don't know if it's a thing that I could do. You talked to me for an hour, and it was honestly life-changing. So I just want to thank you. I really want to thank you for being so generous and being such a mentor to me and to my business.
Yeah, so. And then now you've surpassed me by like light years. It's like amazing to watch you over the past couple of years.
Oh, that's really sweet. That's really very sweet.
Yeah.
So thank you. So how are you, and where have you been the last few months? What have you been up to?
Doing well, but many of you might or might not know that I actually was diagnosed with cancer in December of 2017. So all of 2018, I was dealing with treatment, immunotherapy. I did radiation for half a month. I did chemotherapy, and it was pretty rough, and I had to focus on the essential and important stuff. Basically, I had a tumor that they discovered in my chest that was the size of a roll of cookie dough. And I had no idea it was there, right? And so, obviously we got to get rid of this thing. And so it took really a year, but as of early March, I'm cancer-free, or the cancer is dead, basically. It's still some scar tissue inside. Thank you. I know. I'm excited. I know. It was a rough ride. But I'm back.
Yes, you're back. And I know I'm really excited to see you speak at Planet Philanthropy. I know you're keynoting at Planet Philanthropy.
Yep.
And I'm really excited to read your new book.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So,
that'll be my big coming back party.
Well, we'll have you back on again, and we'll talk all about the book.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about email. So my question, is email dead?
Yes, email's totally dead.
All right, bye. We don't need you anymore.
All right, we're done. See you next week. No, actually, no, email's still obviously the most effective channel with in terms of fundraising. M&R studies this year over year, and they find that email is driving about 13% of online fundraising, and it still is the most effective channel. Basically, if you send 1,000 emails, fundraising emails, you're going to raise $45. Which is a much higher return than any other social media. I'm not sure how it compares to direct mail. Direct mail is really important, by the way. But yeah, email is still really important. Email, I kind of view it as the passport of the internet. You kind of have to have an email in order to do anything. if you want to shop on Amazon, join Netflix, you have to have an email. So everybody has an email.
What was that benchmark again? Because that's something my clients ask me. So the benchmark, the overall average, of course, we're taking into account thousands of different variables, but it's 1,000 emails, $45.
Yeah, $45 a raise if you send a fundraising email to 1,000 people. For every 1,000 people, you're going to raise $45.
And this was from the MR Benchmarks study?
Yeah, M&R campaigns. They do a tremendous benchmarking study every single year.
Oh, fantastic.
And they focus a lot on email, actually, as a channel.
Yes. Yes.
The past year, the open rates and the click rates and the money raised has gone down a little bit. It dipped a little bit in 2018, but it's still the most effective channel in terms of converting. And there's some metrics in there that are kind of interesting that they're reporting on advocacy versus a fundraising ask.
Right.
So they look at completion rates and all that for email. So yeah.
So you did answer my second question. Why use email newsletters, but also what goes into an effective email newsletter for a nonprofit?
Yeah. So email. I'm sorry. What was the first question?
Oh, why use them? But I think you answered them.
I do have a little chemo brain, actually. That's the thing, and that is a thing, by the way. Josh will back me up.
Absolutely, 100%.
Things are a little slower, and but I'm good. So, thanks for repeating that question.
Yes.
So an email newsletter, the first thing, like what makes a fabulous email newsletter? It's one where the organization views it as a platform for engagement rather than just something to distribute information that people are going to read, because people don't necessarily read the whole thing. And newsletters that don't work so well are ones that have tons of copy but little action in there, right? So a newsletter, the best thing about it is that it's a consistent way to communicate with supporters, but more importantly, it's a consistent way to engage them in a number of different ways. Sign this advocacy thing, read this article, share this on Facebook, check us out on Facebook Live. I mean, this is really it's like a platform for engagement that's very cheap to manage and send and deal with, and there's just so much about an email newsletter. And then also you get to know your audience. What topics are they interested in, right?
I have a follow-up question to that, because I know that a lot of my clients, and Josh, you might struggle with this as well at Susan G. Komen, Florida. How do you balance everything you kind of want or need to tell your audience? Maybe you have multiple events, or you have, I know I have one client that has a ton of events, and they really want to use their email newsletter to build this donor relationship. But what do you find is the best way to kind of balance all of the competing messages?
Well, there's two things. One is to think about frequency. So rather than, let's say you're sending a monthly email, if you're going to put everything in there, it's too much. People aren't going to get to that. So they might read the first third of it. Everything beyond that, they're going to ignore. Okay, and you can even notice that in the click rates. If you look at what people are clicking on, generally they click on the top part of the email, whatever's in the first, second, third paragraph, right? So there's that, right? So in that consideration, it might be good to think about, well, let's take that monthly email and chop it up into smaller bits, right? Smaller, and you wouldn't even call it, see, the problem with email newsletters is that we all have this image in our mind of this big, long thing with lots of information, right? But rather, again, going back to this idea that it's a platform for engagement, why not send out an email, and I'm going to say newsletter, but once a week with different things, different updates. The other piece of it is segmentation. So some emails are going to be more appropriate for volunteers. Some emails are going to be better for people who have attended events in the past. Some emails are going to be better for people that are monthly donors. Yeah. Some are better for people that are interested in taking action, action alerts, that sort of thing. So segmentation is a key as well.
That's really key. Would you have a question, Josh?
Well, I just want to add in there. So as you were saying, it's like scaling back. We just sent out our monthly newsletter yesterday, and it was a 3 to 4 week process going through concept with the initial content we wanted to share, I sent out a draft to our communications committee, because if you're working in a silo, then you already need to take a step back. You need to see how others can get involved with the process, because I know I'm thinking with one mindset, and it might not be getting across the right activities we're doing as well as the right mission messaging. So after about 2 or 3 different iterations, we finally came on with a new version, and I'm going to share it right now with everyone.
So you send monthly, Josh?
We do send monthly. We send in. So as John was saying, we send individual relevant pieces, but we do send a monthly newsletter, and I'm going to share it right now on the screen. So with Komen, there's different buckets. You have your care, you have your action, you have your research, you have your advocacy. So that's kind of how we sectioned off each portion of the newsletter, and it was quick, short pieces of content with a clear call to action with what I wanted you to do, because I wanted to get you off the email and I wanted you to get to my website where we could actually have a transaction, something happen, whether you're signing up for a program, you're volunteering, you're donating. I'm providing information on how to get resources. We're highlighting survivors. We're highlighting our warriors so you can get to know them better, which is a big program that we have tied in with our annual Race for the Cure, and then brings it back. They're almost ambassadors throughout the year. Showing action, how you can get involved in the community and hold a fundraiser to benefit Komen. Then, as you were saying before, driving them to a Facebook Live. So it's repurposing content that we had previously done. So we had an interview of our executive director sitting down with a radiologist, talking about some latest studies, and we took that email, or we took that Facebook Live, we embedded it on our website as a blog post, we then embedded it here in our newsletter. So once again, repurposing that piece, and then the final thing is here's an upcoming event where you can get involved in your community. Very simple, not a lot of copy, which was key because we wanted to make sure that you got to the call to action quickly and got onto our site where you could actually take action. We're seeing great response and open rate from it. And, the best thing is when someone actually emails you and says, thanks for the newsletter, but my email is changing. Please make sure I'm still on your list.
Wow.
So many times you just get the unsubscribes and it's nothing. So it's great.
Yeah.
Well, then that leads me to my other question, and I know I get these questions all the time, and I know it depends, but how often do you recommend sending out an email from your nonprofit, John?
It depends upon resources and capacity, right? So smaller organizations, they have so many things going on, maybe once a month minimum. And actually, Kivi did a survey, Kivi Leroy Miller did a survey, I think a couple of years ago, where she asked nonprofits, how often are you sending? Most are sending at least once a month. But if an organization has the resources, and they do what I was talking about, chopping it up into smaller bits, then they could send weekly pretty easily. And I love what Josh mentioned is repurposing, right? We don't want to make a newsletter something that's this extra thing that we're doing. We want to make it kind of part of a layer cake, right? So a layer cake might be the blog post is the bottom layer.
I'm taking notes, by the way. Okay.
Oh.
I love that.
Okay, so basically layer cake, right? So blog post takes the most effort, perhaps, right? And then on top of that, we're taking the copy from the blog post, we're using it for the email. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. Sorry. One moment, hold. Josh, why don't you take over?
That's okay. It's live video.
It's a puppy. He's just saying hi. To answer, so we had a couple questions come in. I believe your name is Rage. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong.
Rage.
That's a great
Yes.
name. The subject line of that newsletter was news from Komen, Florida, May 2019. Simple. Didn't want a lot of characters in there. Wanted to let you know what was coming in. We mess around with different subject lines depending on what it is. Usually we'll do a simple call to action, but keeping it short and simple to what's in that email that you're going to get, so you have an idea. Sarah asks, what is considered a great open rate for a newsletter like Komen's? John, do you want to touch on what is a standard open rate accepted for?
Yeah, do we have some benchmarks for open rates?
So M&R report just came out, the M&R campaigns report, and they found 16% for a newsletter, okay? So 16% open rate. I guarantee you Josh is higher.
Yeah.
Josh, what's your open rate?
I have to go back and look and see, but once again, it comes back to segmenting. So we send it out, it's a different audience throughout the state. So I'll have to go back and look because it just went out the other day.
Yeah, open rates, that's a tough one. Constant Contact had said a couple of years ago that they found that the average nonprofit open rate was 25%, but I thought that was really high.
Yeah, 25% is pretty good. That's my email newsletter, which I'm always
I'm sure, yeah.
25, 30%. Now, here's the thing with open rates, though. An open rate on a newsletter is going to be maybe, let's say, 15 to 25%, okay? But triggered emails are much higher, all right?
Okay.
So let's say someone gets your email newsletter and you say, click on this link to take action, sign this petition. They sign the petition, and then immediately they get an email that says, thanks for signing the petition. Here's what else you can do.
Yes.
Make a small donation, right? And then they might receive 2 more emails over the next week. So those emails, those triggered emails that are action-based, are going to get at least a 50% open rate because they're totally relevant to that person, right? So one strategy I've been using with clients with email newsletter is, what can we do that actually creates that triggered action? Or let's look to, again, it's a platform for engagement, right? Remember the video game? I don't know if they still have this video game, but it's a video game where you dance on it and the colors, you kind of dance.
Like Dance Dance Revolution?
DDR.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not too familiar. But you see where people dance on this thing, right? So that's how I view email newsletter. Like, let's get something people can actually engage with and dance on. And then one of those things might be triggering other actions, right?
It's like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. I love that idea.
Yeah.
So just to kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent, I use something called ConvertKit. Yeah. And it has that capability. I don't leverage it nearly as much as I could, but if someone clicks on a link in my email, they can be added to a tag and then get that triggered automation. So I'm not sure if that's available in MailChimp and Constant Contact, but I know that there are platforms.
Yeah, I think Constant Contact you can as well.
Okay.
That's key, and that's one of the major frustrations that I have about the technology that we use at Komen, is that we don't have the ability to do full automation as I would like, or as I know that I should be doing. So it's one of those, like, don't always practice what you preach just because of the ties of the technology.
Well, yeah, it's also like you said, marketing automation. So marketing automation is when you have email deeply integrated with the web platform, whether it's fundraising platform or whatever. That way, when someone clicks on a link to go make a donation from the newsletter, and they don't complete that donation, you can set some automation says that, hey, let's send them an automatic email that says, hey, it looks like you tried to make a donation, but you weren't able to finish the job. Try again, or give us a call and we'll help you out.
Cool. Okay.
So there's automated actions. Those usually get super high open rates.
So if you are a small nonprofit, how can you tell that your emails are working?
Well, so first of all, don't use Excel. Don't use Microsoft Outlook to send emails. Don't use
or Gmail.
Or like BCC Gmail. Use something legitimate like Constant Contact, MailChimp, ConvertKit. I use Drip email. And the thing about all of these is they have metrics. So the metrics are going to show you if it's working or not. The other piece of it is, so metrics, right? We're looking at open rates and click-through rates, and that's it. If you want to take it a step further, you want to look at Google Analytics. So you can look through UTM tags and see how people are behaving when they click on links and go to your website. Are they bouncing off? Are they sticking around? What other web pages are they looking at? So, there's a lot you can do with metrics to see if something's working or not, but mainly it's going to be open rates and click rates.
Okay. I have a question. I just thought of this question right now. Have you worked on any kind of re-engagement campaign? So I'm interested to know, and maybe explain what re-engagement campaigns are and how a nonprofit could do one, or how I could maybe do one. I'm just asking.
Yeah. So re-engagement is basically, I look at it as, again, another metaphor. You take your defibrillator, right?
Yes.
And your email list, or maybe a segment within it, is totally flatlining.
Yes.
Nothing. No response. Boom. We got to jump them to to life, right?
Okay.
So the key is to understand that segment and find out what's useful for them and put something out there that's heavily weighted on value for that group of people, right? Something that they're going to notice, right? The beginning, you gotta have to think about it as the beginning of the relationship. Now, there's one really interesting campaign I worked on about a year and a half ago, and this was an organization that had a peer-to-peer fundraising strategy, and they actually had people starting fundraising pages, but they weren't finishing it. Okay. And so I said, well, they said, hey, how can we kind of jumpstart this thing? So we actually realized, looking at the data that we had on all of these fundraisers, they were putting in the name of the person that they were going to raise money in honor of, right? And so what we did is we crafted an email that said, hey, and it was just super short, and it was a series of emails, but basically it went along these lines.
It's like, hey, stupid. No.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that would get their attention for sure. No, but basically it said, hey, we know it's really hard to raise money, right? But we know that, and we know that you care. We know that you started creating a fundraising page for a very good reason, and that is to honor your friend Mary.
Yeah.
So here's the link. Let's get it. So basically, going back to it, like I said before, that original intent or the value that that person is going to receive, right?
Okay.
I want to finish this for my friend, right?
I love that.
Things like that, it can kind of jumpstart a list. But it is, to be honest with you, the key is to really understand what's going to motivate people, a specific segment, and put value totally on, sometimes you could do a giveaway. It depends upon the audience, but basically it has to be all about 100% about them. You can't expect to get your email woken up again if you're saying, hey, we need money, right? They're going to ignore that. That's probably what put them to sleep to begin with. There's too many fundraising emails.
That's interesting. I mean, what do you think about Joe Waters and his, he's very public about it, but after 3 months, if someone doesn't open an email from him, he deletes them off his list.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Okay.
3 months might be a little harsh.
I would say 6.
Yeah.
6 months.
I wouldn't recommend deleting.
He emails every week, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend deleting, but it's a good idea to kind of do that list cleaning every now and then. I do it. I haven't done it lately, but I do it every 6 months, where I'll send out a series of 3 emails, and it will go out to people that haven't opened up an email in 90 days.
Smart.
And it will
Does that automatically happen?
I basically have to kind of set the workflow, like turn it on, and it will automatically target people that haven't opened an email in 90 days. And it's basically 3 tries. It says, hey, you haven't opened it up. If you're not interested, you don't have to do anything. I'm going to remove your email, okay? And then there's another one. But each message says, if you want to stay subscribed, click on this link, And then the last email has a Crowded House video in it, where, don't dream it's over. Right? Don't dream it's over.
Yeah, they're all too young to know that.
Yeah, I know, really. I know, yeah. So it's, I think entertainment and having a sense of humor is really key, just really with...
Well, it matches your brand, too.
Yeah. So I give them 3 tries. If they don't click, then I unsubscribe automatically.
Wow. Okay.
We have
what do you guys do at Komen?
We have a question here from Becca. Becca said, if 25% is a good open rate, what's a good click-through rate?
Good. You know what? I don't know.
How many links would you recommend putting in an email?
How many links? Oh, as many as possible.
Okay.
No, actually, so basically first paragraph, second, you want to have a link, you want to have a call to action. That's how I think of it. Not necessarily a link really, but a call to action. You want to ask people to act for action right at the get-go.
Okay.
First paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph, whatever it is, But that's a big mistake that I see a lot of organizations make, is they have too much copy and not enough action. And what we want is we want people to do things. We don't want people to read and say, oh, that was such a nice email newsletter. I learned a lot from it, because we're interested in action. And the more that we get, when we think about it, it's like little clicks are little yeses.
Yes.
And the more that we kind of habituate, I hate to use that word, but basically create a habit of like, hey, when I get a newsletter, there's some stuff for me to do. More likely, we're going to have that person more likely to sign petitions, volunteers, make a donation when the time is right. If we're not asking them to do anything until we ask for money, we're going to be very dissatisfied with the result.
I love that. And I totally stepped on Becca's question. So what do you think is a good click-through rate in your opinion?
Click-through rate, you know what? I don't know. I would be guessing. I mean, I think their data, M&R has some data on click-through.
Yeah.
If your email open rate is 25%, a click-through rate might be 10%. A good click-through rate might be 10%.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. I'm literally taking notes here. I love that idea because I think there was so much...
You're taking notes on the number that I just threw out there, right?
It's fine. I'm taking complete notes. I love the CTA point because I feel like email has evolved so much since we all signed up for Constant Contact and MailChimp back in the day, or Vertical Response, whatever it was. But it used to be that you wanted to write this newsletter, this long newsletter, you had tons of content, and then people said, okay, make it short and sweet and only have one call to action. Yep. And then, so it's kind of evolved, and I think the point is that, at least for me, there's not really kind of one size fits all, but I love that idea of you're getting people to say yes, because that's like a sales tactic.
Yeah.
Getting people to just say yes, even with a click, even just opening your email is a yes, and then clicking is the second yes, so that when you actually ask them to donate, they're primed. They're like, oh yeah, I've been opening these email newsletters, I've been clicking on the blog. That makes so much sense to me.
Well, to your point, Julia, sorry to cut you off, John, it goes back to everything we've been saying. It's about segmentation. So if you know that these people are opening up your emails, create a separate distribution list for them, and then target the emails specifically with messaging that would benefit from them. So we're going from this long newsletter to individual bite-sized pieces weekly with your still monthly, we'll call it a narrative. And then as we're seeing that different people are reacting and engaging with different emails, you put them on their different lists so you know how to segment your communication to them differently.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yes. So, I mean, this has been amazing, and I want to be cognizant of your time. I know you have an awesome lunch to go to.
I have a couple more minutes.
No, but I want to wrap up with the question that I sent to you. Of course, you can go over 5, but sort of just to kind of summarize, what are your top 5 hot tips, best practices for the small shop nonprofit trying to maximize email effectiveness?
Okay, so actually I wrote a blog post about this. That's probably where you got this question.
But we can link to it.
So I have a blog post called 5 Features of Effective Email Newsletters.
Oh, perfect.
The first point is effective newsletters are relevant to the audience. So don't just send it to everyone. Understand your audience and there are different segments, right? And, to that point, you can take, I was working with a couple of organizations. I work with many that have very limited resources. So sometimes you'll write a newsletter, for example, a newsletter for email subscribers versus a newsletter for current donors, right? They can have kind of similar content. The difference is that the email for donors is going to be more weighted on impact stories. The newsletter that's for email subscribers who haven't given, they might be more weighted on problem stories. Here are the problems, and you can solve this problem, right? So they're relevant to the subscriber. The second one is that they're useful. We want to create an email newsletter that people actually anticipate looking forward to. A key to that is to be consistent, to have a theme in newsletters. For example, Julia, I love your newsletter. It's awesome. And you always have...
I feel completely inconsistent, so thank you.
You're very consistent because here's what you do. You always say, hey, we got Facebook Live happening. Check it out. We have you promote this Facebook Live video. So, overall, it's good to have consistency with your marketing, everything that you do. And then also mixing channels together. Don't treat email as a silo. Have a strategy where you have a blog or you're using Facebook Live. And especially if you're trying to get more out of Facebook Live, you've got to send people an email saying, hey, we're going to go live. Check it out, right? So mixing these two together, people would get your email, they anticipate it, they're going to take action, and they're going to become engaged on Facebook, right? So mixing all this together, kind of, and I'm going to date myself here, but the Reese's Pieces peanut butter commercial, remember that?
Yeah.
You know, chocolate and peanut butter, these two people bump into each other. Oh, it's better together, right? So
Yes.
all of this is better when we mix it together strategically. Because our supporters, they don't think of themselves as, oh, I'm an email subscriber. Oh, well, I'm a Facebook fan.
Right.
They just think I'm a supporter. That's it, right?
That's true.
The third point is that effective email newsletters are readable, okay? And when I say readable, I mean this is what people are using to read an email newsletter.
Yeah.
They're not.
Ooh, what phone do you have?
What's that?
Oh, you're an Apple guy.
Oh yeah, iPhone. Okay.
Josh
You
is
don't.
too.
You don't like iPhones?
No, I have a Google Pixel.
Oh, cool. That's great. That's better, I think. I don't know.
No.
I just don't want to switch. I don't know. But to be honest, it's
Yes.
a small screen, right?
Sorry to totally distract you, but
Yeah.
it's gigantic screen.
Wow. Oh, yeah, it is pretty big, huh? Yeah, it's a good screen. But it's small still, okay?
It's small.
And so we want to have an email newsletter that's scannable. When we create a newsletter, or really any email, we always want to test it on a mobile device. And we want to see, are we asking for action or creating interest or asking for action without someone scrolling? You know, is there something they can do right when they open up the email? Okay?
So
That's the third point.
So wait, I want to cut you off on that real quick, John. So above the fold in the email, there should be a call to action.
There should be
or just like
something that they can
not
do.
necessarily. You're not talking explicitly like click here to do this. You're just saying a link or
A link,
button.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or a link or something that they can do. You know, Facebook
Smart.
Live, or check out our latest blog post, that sort of thing. Oh, and by the way, here's a common mistake I see organizations make all the time. They'll have a beautiful header at the top of the email with the logo and all this stuff, and that will link to the home page of the website. But what they're trying to do is we want people to go to our event and register for the event. Always make sure that header link is updated to the place that you want people to go to, not just your homepage, right? So that's important. Number 4, effective emails are consistent. So, you won't have a high open rate. You won't get the most out of your newsletter if you're just sending it whenever you have time. So it's got to be consistent. Either commit to monthly or weekly, and also have consistent themes, because you want to engender some expectation. Wow, I can't wait to get the newsletter. This is what they have. This is what this organization's about. And then number 5, effective newsletters are actionable, meaning that you're giving people something that they can do. It's not about the information and what they're going to read and consume. It's about what they're going to do from the newsletter.
That's amazing. All right. Well, those are the questions I have. I don't know,
Thank
Josh,
you.
if you have any questions or if any have come in.
No, I think we're good. We've
Okay.
pretty much answered everyone's question.
So my last question is
Yeah.
we know we can see you next to Planet Philanthropy, but where can we find you online? What do you have coming up? I know you have a webinar all about this. Where can we find
Yep.
information about it?
Yeah, so Charity How To, I'm doing a webinar for Charity How To on email newsletters. And I think it's May 23rd, something like that, towards the end of the month. And for those of you who are going to Planet Philanthropy, I would love to have coffee with you if you're going to be there in Florida. And I have a book that I'm working on that should be published early 2020. And John,
Can you tell us anything about your book? A little.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So basically, donor care, it's called, and it's donor care. How to use marketing to make sure that first-time donors return.
Oh my gosh.
So it's all about
That's
the
like me and
retention.
Josh's like
Yeah.
what
yeah.
we're obsessed with.
Yeah. So I think nonprofits are really focused on getting the new donor. That's the sexy thing. But for some reason, they're failing big time at keeping the donors happy. But actually, that's where the money is. And what I mean, that's where the money is. It's actually 10 times cheaper. I should say up to 10 times cheaper to keep a donor happy than to have to replace that donor with a brand new person. There's that. Plus, there's the lifetime value. If you get a donor coming back 2-3 times, they're probably going to stick around for a while, right? And so the lifetime value of that donor goes way up if we focus on retention more than we focus on acquisition. And then the third big benefit of focusing on retention is that now we have a loyal donor base. Loyal donors are not just donors. They're more likely to be volunteers, advocates, ambassadors, and so forth. So we're building up our community much more in a much stronger way. So the book is really focusing on CARE. It's an acronym. What is it? I know.
Oh no, I remember the acronym you told me the other day.
Oh, yeah, donor care. So it's connect,
yes,
appreciate, reply, which means let's have a back and forth discussion, and then encourage. What's the next step for that donor? What's the next step for these people? Right?
Amazing. I can think of, I mean, like 20 people right off the bat who I know would be really interested in that book. Amazing.
Oh, great. Wow. Because that's all I need to sell. I just need to sell 20 books.
Yeah. I can think of a ton of, would be interested in talking to you about it.
Oh, yeah.
Helping you publicize it.
Way, because
I'm sure there are thousands of people that would want to buy it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Thank you. That's so sweet. I am actually looking for nonprofits to interview. And Josh, you're on my list. I want to interview for the book.
Sounds
oh, cool.
Great.
Okay,
Love
so if you're watching this and you are a nonprofit, do you want us to put your email in the thing, email you, find you on Twitter, and connect?
Yeah, find me on Twitter. You can email me at john@johnhayden.com.
Okay.
And I'm really looking for organizations that are focusing on retention and having some sort of success, basically caring for donors. They've realized that when we care sincerely for donors, we get a much different result than if we just focus only on the new name and people not coming back.
I'm going to call out Stephen Shattuck here from Bloomerang. So I don't know if you've spoken to him, but I saw him speak at Cause Camp all about donor retention, and it was incredible. And I know he focuses a lot on that. Yeah. So we'll connect you.
I'm gonna get him in the book as well. So
yes, great. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's so great to see you, and I can't wait to hang out with you in Florida. And thank you everyone who joined us today. We will be back. We are working on a couple of other ideas and potential special guests. Nothing nailed down that I can announce yet. But we will be back this month with some more Facebook Lives. And as usual, just email us, leave your questions in the comments, join us in the Facebook group. We are very active over there. But make sure you check out johnhayden.com and his charity how-to webinar on email newsletters. And we will see you all on the flip side, I guess.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.